Pat, I'm really excited to have you here today to talk about the ministry to the homeless. Just getting into all of it, X's and O's, some of our experiences. Are you ready for that, Mr. Pat Nevy?
It's interesting. I think you and I have different experiences with ministering to the homeless because for me, it's always just kind of happened. Whereas, like, it seems like you've done the more nobler thing and you've sought it out. Whereas for me, God has to like throw the poor in my face to
No,
get me to
that's
notice.
how I started too.
Sure. Okay. So, because I remember like there were several moments when I was in high school where I would be driving because I got my license pretty early, and I would be driving through a parking lot and I would see at Publix, there's a woman there. Very clearly, she's experiencing homelessness. I go up and I talk to her. Or there's a guy who's begging on the street, and something in me just says, "Hey, pull over. You got nothing else going on. Pull over, talk to him, see what's going on." There were a lot of instances throughout high school where that happened to me and at home on breaks when I was back from college. And they keep happening. They'll happen over and over again. And so over time, I've just, and especially since meeting you and talking with you, I've been more conscious about those times. And yeah, so I just, whenever I see a homeless person, I think, how can I minister to them?
Yeah, so high school, that's pretty early. I found that when I'm mentoring high school students and even college students, that you might find very few high school students and maybe 1 in 10 in college would do
Mm-hmm.
the actual service of giving food or a bag of snacks and water. But they all enjoyed packing them, writing notes of encouragement. They all seemed interested. They wanted to help that person, but there's kind of like a breaking through that
Yeah.
homelessness label or just an overall fear or anxiety of having an interaction that they don't know where it will lead or what type of
Mm-hmm.
person could be homeless. So
Yeah. Well,
my
it's kind of like marriage. If you'll allow my analogy real quick, it's kind of like marriage. Do you remember when you were like thinking about getting married and you were
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Wow, it's gonna be, oh man, it's gonna." Even if you were still if you were dating Aaron at the time, but if you think you're just thinking about his wife's name is Aaron. That's um, for those who don't know.
Errands,
When you're getting married,
those sinners.
let me start that over. I'm sorry. It's kind of like getting married, if you'll excuse the weird analogy. It's like when you're preparing for marriage, it feels there's a lot going on. It's very difficult and it's kind of daunting, right? But when you're younger and you're thinking about marriage, it's this fairy tale. It's beautiful. It's great in the abstract. And when someone asks you, "Do you want to get married?" you say, "Oh, of course I get married." It's similar with feeding the homeless. When someone asks you, "Hey, do you want to feed the homeless?" You're like, "Ah, yes, the homeless, the poor, this abstract entity that I can love from afar." It's easier to serve. And there's nothing wrong with that desire to serve. Just like there's nothing wrong with that desire to get married, but it's harder when you're like right up in front of that person, facing that person to serve and love them because they're stinky and you don't know if they're going to hurt you and you're kind of scared of them and they're kind of scared of you. It's like same thing with marriage. When you're leading up to marriage, you're like, "Oh my gosh, like this is it. I'm doing it. I'm marrying this person. This is it." It's hard when you're face to face with that person. If you've experienced this on your wedding day or the week leading up to it or the year leading up to it.
I,
It's
I
the
would
same with
I would
homelessness.
I
It's
would
hard.
kind of take it a step further. So yeah, getting
Oh my
married,
gosh.
there's that romanticization of what marriage is, and then there's difficulties of
Yeah.
negotiation. I gotta express what I need, and you have to express what and that even that interpersonal communication is something that some kids don't learn, and they become marriage age, and they still haven't learned it by then. But I would kind of compare it, just because we're going off this weird analogy, to having kids, maybe more so, because when you're married, you have this wonderful, beautiful,
Mm,
beautiful, exotic human being that is just, oh, she's just so easy to look at. But kids, that meaning kind of comes over time. Like after a month, 2 months, you start to, get that more of a, as fathers, at least for me, my
yeah.
affinity to my children has grown over time. Whereas some women say that as a mother, it happens like instantly once you feel the
Right
kick.
away. Yeah.
And for men, you kind of develop that. So for ministry to the homeless, that's definitely been the case for me. I've never really had a romanticization of serving the poor. I'm kind of an includer, so I wanted to bring people into that. Hey, here's some warm food. I am, on the inside, and you're kind of on the outside looking in. I'm going through a drive-through.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, can I get you food? So, definitely, there are 3 or 4 ways that I've served the homeless with food, and one of them is every time I see somebody before I order in the drive-through, I'll ask them what they want. And then the other is going out with pizza on the street, walking in the parks with pizza, and then driving around town with snacks ready to go in the car. Just, hey, can I give you some snacks? Hey, can I give you some pizza? I'm not trying to impose on your life. You don't have to take it, but I hope this helps in some small way. And then over time, seeing those same people, developing a relationship, trust, then sharing the project with other people so that they can experience it as well. And I could get into how I started, and I've been talking for a bit, but does that sound okay if I can get into a little
Yeah,
bit?
please. Tell me how you got started
So,
in serving the homeless.
John Paul the Great Catholic University, on the way to and from the dorms, which were really an apartment that was set up like a dorm, and it was really nice. They had a hot tub and a pool and like a...
You're kidding me.
It was so sick. So JP Catholic, it's still the same way. If there's anybody college age, it's a good place to go for film, business, theology, acting. All right. So there were a couple of people who stayed right around the school and slept there, like right by the door, and were there every day. And Greg was the main person that sort of showed me the humanity or the personhood in that state, as you said, experiencing homelessness. People come in and out. Homelessness is not like a permanent label that somebody has. There are plenty of people who lose their job or have a divorce, and then they find their way out of it. And so that was my experience of getting to know somebody and then having that sort of, I don't know if spectrum is the right word, but there's all sorts of people with different backgrounds on the street. People that don't want to be there, people that want to be there. But meeting Greg, he had such a big personality, and all of the students, most of the students, knew him and talked to him, gave him food, listened to his story, and it was just very easy to be a part of that community with the other students ministering to Greg. And I started to talk to him a lot more and see the other people around town, and that's when we decided together to start doing the care packages. I actually had a class assignment to come up with a business idea that was based on a human need, as opposed to, hey, I want to design something that looks cool. Hey, let's start with a need that all humans have. And that need was the need to serve and pursue meaningful activities that helped others. And I called that impact, involving more people according to church teaching or as Christ taught or whatever. And Alyssa and Marianne, 2 wonderful friends of Aaron and mine, 2 short Filipinos, girls. And they always joked and called us mom and dad even before we were married. We went on the Europe trip. They called us mom, dad. They're so great. I love Alyssa and Marianne. They helped me make a fake website and everything. And the teacher kept saying, well, a lot of these business ideas, the students take it and run with it, and it becomes a real business venture. And so I transitioned it, took a step between my senior project of organizing service projects. So we visited the retirement homes about 24 times with entertainment, picnic visits, bingo, bringing cookies and cards to those who like to be pen pals. And that was part of getting the students activated. I think there were about 200 to 250 students at the time, and there were more than 70 that participated in the retirement home, in the serving the homeless. And there was a third project that never really got all the way off the ground that I'm hoping to restart, where actors got costumes to do library and pediatric visits as characters. So that's kind of how I got started. I just met Greg. Like, hi, Greggy Bones, don't forget to drink your H2O, because he was an alcoholic. And I was just trying to keep things lively and show that, my care for him was fun and genuine. Just give him a little bit of a better day.
It's friendship.
Just came out of that. So after that, we just experienced more and more serving the homeless.
When you and I were prepping this podcast, we were talking about what are our main kind of advice, main points for serving the homeless. Do you have your first if you had to give one piece of advice, I'll ask you this question. If you had to give one piece of advice to someone who wanted to start serving the homeless today, what would you tell them?
If somebody wanted to do it in the first place, yeah. So it's not necessarily something for everyone to do. And Impact
Sure.
Resources, although we do a ton of homelessness outreach projects, our goal is to do a wide range of helping somebody find a way that they themselves, with their gifts and strengths, can meet a need, and take 2 hours a month and 2 hours a week, ideally, at some point. So, for where to start, that's a great question. I think simple, and just find somebody around that you recognize and see near your work or near your where you commute through. And so you recognize them, you kind of have a sense for the type of person, and just start with something simple like cold water bottles or a sandwich, or, a bag of snacks. And just say, hey, I don't know you, but can I give you this? Actually, don't say I don't know you. Just say, hey, can I give you some snacks? And don't make it about you, and don't make it grand or some heroic thing. To them, they're still going to be homeless. They'll be hungry in a few hours again, but they will really appreciate it. That's the starting point.
Yeah.
Is just go out and experience. Some learning is experiential. It's not something that I can teach you one step, step 1 through 3, and have you really know what that experience is. That's like a lot of things in life. So you have to just go and do it one time, and see what it's like.
Yeah. That's a good jumping point off to my first takeaway is just my personal experience with it is you just have to, if homeless ministry is something you feel called to, or let's not even call it homeless ministry, if like serving the homeless is what you feel called to, you have to do it. You have to go and do it. You have to go meet someone. And homeless ministry is relational ministry. I'm a youth minister. I talk about relational ministry all the time. We had kickball with our kids yesterday, and like you said, it's similar with, organizing kickball for the kids is it's similar to giving a homeless man a bottle of water. It's like he's going to be thirsty again. These kids are going to need something to do again. They're going to feel lonely again later in the week. But like that doesn't diminish the meaning, the impact of that action. Like that moves you closer to Christ. It moves them closer to Christ. And that kind of thing needs to happen person to person. You can't, it's not just the act of putting the snack bags together. It's the act of like giving it to them and encountering them in that moment. And again, like you said, not making it about you, because it's not this beautiful, special thing that you've done. It cost, what is it, like 0.01% of your net worth to buy that granola bar, right? But it's more about them. But encountering that person is the number one thing that changed my perspective on homeless ministry. Is like meeting people and talking to them is the most important thing you can do.
Now, my style, so it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to feed 40 or 50 people, or are you trying to make a deeper impact for 3 or 4? Now, the good news about when you go out to feed 30 or 40 people, and what we do is we just buy 12 Costco pizzas, 18-inch, which is about 3,000 square inches of pizza. Because so if you don't know pizza, an 18-inch, and is this like the circumference or the diameter rather? It's more than twice as big as a 12-inch. And so the math, so it's all about, the circle.
Yeah.
Good geometry lesson. So that's why I'm going to start saying how many square inches of pizza the Impact gives away rather than boxes.
Yeah, no, 3,000 square inches of pizza is great.
150,000 square inches of pizza this year given away.
Honestly, even if you divided that into square feet, that would be, you could divide it into square feet and then like compare it to a suburban home. Like we've given away a suburban home.
The square inches better. After I did.
Oh yeah, it's a lot bigger number.
Yes, 150,000.
We've given away a football field of pizza.
Yeah, I wish when we get into that, I'm going to be very excited. When we hit a football field.
How many square inches is a football field?
Think about like just run all up and down the field, left, right, cross, and every square inch is covered by pizza. So that's a lot.
That's how much we've given away.
But I have to think we're close or there already, because we've gone out pretty much every week this year, and if you go for the lifetime of Impact, we've done this for years. So, all right. If I'm going to serve 40 or 50 people, or if I have a goal to really minister to 2 or 3, they kind of happen at the same time, because when I'm just giving those 40 or 50 people food, and most of them are just thank you so much, and they want to just get to eating, and they have their privacy, and they don't necessarily want to talk. But I have really good friends, just to shout out Jacob, Adil, Angel, and quite a few other people that go with me nowadays. And we get asked, "What are you here for? Like, what are you doing?" And Jacob will right away be like, "We're here to serve the poor in the name of the Lord," or something like that, or in the name of Jesus. And so, food and water is what the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which is kind of like the explanation of what Catholics believe for Catholics. The
Mm-hmm.
Catechism of the Catholic Church says that instrumental common goods pave a way for the substantive goods. So if somebody is hungry, it's so hard for them to have peace, happiness, to
Mm-hmm.
pursue education if they're truly in poverty. And so these instrumental goods, shelter, food, they help somebody to be in a state in life to pursue those things which are infinitely shareable that perfect the human person, which is the definition of
Mm.
substantive common good. And so, what we really strive for in life is relationship, meaning, knowledge, peace, joy, um, friendship. And so, if I have some of those things and they're flowing up and they're bubbling up in me because I possess them through having everything that I need, and I'm grateful. Gratitude is another substantive common good. Well, if I share that with somebody and offer them food and water and just a brief moment where they can be in that state of mind, it allows for them to receive some of that joy, that peace from me, and I don't actually lose any of it, which is cool. That's why
Mm-hmm.
it's infinitely shareable. It's like, what's this technical term? But there's a reason for the wording that those things are by nature infinitely shareable. And so, yeah, giving food to all these people, they say, "Where are you from? What are you doing this for?" Sometimes. Other times, most of the time, actually about 90 to 95% of the time, unless I'm at a red light turning green or something, I'll say, "What's your name, by the way?" And I'll say my name. Try to remember them. We keep a list. Some of our people pray for the people on the list, which is really awesome. And that's the most important aspect. The most important part of it is what happens over time when people start sharing, "Hey, man, thank you for coming again." It's like the 25th time we've seen Chris or Richard or John or whoever it is,
Mm-hmm.
because they're always in the same spot. And they share all of their story. Met some people that I've interviewed before. One person we're working on a documentary for, and that was all organic. That was part of just them wanting to get to know us. And so the ones that shouldn't be on the street, not to say no one should be on the street, but ones that are
Mm-hmm.
trying to get off the street and have an interest in other people and want to work and want to, do things for others, they tend to stick out and become close friends with us. And it's helpful because, look, we can take 1 or 2 minutes to look up and get like a stimulus check set up for them, especially if we know they're not going to spend it on drugs or alcohol. But if
Mm-hmm.
they're due money, or if they need an application done, or an application for like a new ID, it doesn't take us very long, but it can drastically change their prospects. And so that's another thing that we hope
Mm-hmm.
to do while we approach this project is, how do we give them food right away? A lot of times leave so they can enjoy food together, or give extra to somebody who has friends so they can participate in the sharing, which is really
Mm-hmm.
cool. And
That is cool.
they get to then have a meal together and go, "I don't know who that stranger was, but thank you, God, for sending somebody." So they don't really remember even what we look like. Sometimes they don't get our name, but they're just like, "Awesome, cool." And we get to kind of be those
Yeah.
random act of surprise agents and go around town. And so that's the fun of it.
Sounds great. What.
I went on
So
for a
what
long
what
time
then?
there. Apologies.
No. I expect nothing less.
I was just keeping track of my tangents, and I have to tie a bow on each tangent, or I can't go forward.
No, that was great. That was perfect. When I was editing the last couple of clips, I was like, man, I wish he had finished that one because that was.
Yeah,
It
sometimes I
sounded
kind
like it
of
was
get half
going
into
somewhere
it,
good.
and without realizing it, I have like just my brain thinks I've kind of completed the point, or somebody else can finish the point in their
Yeah,
own
sure.
mind. But when you're listening to somebody like on ESPN or Catholic radio or anything, and they half say a point, and you're like, "This is where that should go," and you're like, "Say it." You kind of want them to
Come
complete
on,
the
keep
point.
going, keep going.
When someone's trying to figure out if the ministry to the poor is for them and what group of poor that might mean, I always ask somebody, "Do you like people? Do you care about people? Pick one. Do you like people or care about people? Do you like being around them? Do they energize you, or do you have a concern for their well-being? That's the first question to determine, like, do you want to do things that are out social or like project focused where you're working on things at home to be delivered, or do you like talking on the phone and you can do a ministry of calling 2 friends a week and hearing how they are and letting them just share their life and just listening to understand them? That's a great project. Serving the poor is great if you just want something on the way to work and back where you feed somebody. And if you're a chef and you just appreciate when somebody eats your food, you could home make the food. But yeah, going back to childhood is a good thing. Like, did you do any volunteer stuff between then and now that made you feel like you were coming alive and energized and happy and really finding meaningful work in that service? So those are some good questions just as a starting point. And then if I were talking to you, I'd ask you more questions from there. But do you like people, care about people? What's your background in service, or what's your work background, and how can that be used additional 2 hours a week or 2 hours a month for serving the poor? Like, my dad's great with
Yeah, I definitely
taxes and accounting, for example, and so he does some work for clients at St. Vincent de Paul, which
cool.
is food and clothes and all that, but also helping someone get a job and do their paperwork and taxes and things like that. So
Yeah, I definitely think I like people. I care about people as well, but I definitely think I like people. So I'm very partial to the like, let's go meet new friends.
I think I'm in like the 95th percentile for both. Although, because on my Clifton StrengthsFinder test, includer and relator are both very high up, as well as developer and maximizer, which is all about like coaching and helping somebody be their best at a young age. And so that's why I got into turning service into a mentorship project.
Yeah.
It makes just complete total sense. But and then but not in an emotional way. Like, when I care about people, I'm also analytical and strategic, or even higher. They're like, those are all like my top
okay.
seven. And so
Sure.
I know that I can't carry somebody's sufferings with me to the next encounter and have that benefit the person that's suffering. If I just listen to somebody tell their story, sometimes it gets me, but I move on pretty quickly as soon as I'm not with them anymore. And so
I see.
I care about them to the extent that I can do something about it. There's those two realms, the circle of influence and the circle of concern. And there's so many things in this world that we can be concerned about. There's a war still happening somehow in Ukraine right now. So, and you go into your local community and there are just so many things to be concerned about as well. How many people, some people that I've seen are just in rough shape mentally. And if I thought about them just for 10 minutes a day, if I wasn't praying about them, if I was just reflecting on how it's crazy, and it would really weigh me down. And so I try to be present to my kids, and because I'm supposed to be a father to my kids when I'm home. And I think a lot of people, they carry the weight of their concerns around with them, and they can't influence those concerns. And, what's hopeful is that when we start to focus on the things we can influence and live incarnationally and kind of avoid getting sucked into what we were talking about the other day, the world of media and getting updated on the political or social news of the day, if we start living in our influence, that there's no limit to what could be possible from growing through doing that repeatedly every day, day to day, compounding in our own relationships, in our family. If I focus on, hey, how can I uplift my son? How can I teach my daughter something today? How can I serve my spouse? And the more focused we are on that, here's the thing about impact. I think that having a service project to the poor for 2 hours a week helps us to be incarnationally serving in our families as well. I know that's the case for me. When I come home, I'm changed by service. And that's why we say per week, per month, regular. Per week is better because it really becomes part of my identity when I'm serving once a week. And I think that once a month can kind of fade after 10 days goes by, and you might forget. It might be hard to keep, consistent. So, yeah, and then sometimes a few minutes throughout different days, you think about, you do something, and you grow in that service project. Like, hey, I'm going to buy some shirts. So I'm at Walmart. Some white T-shirts help people living outside in the summer because they don't attract the sunlight as much.